This is TLV1.
TLV1 Radio.
Great mixture.
I like Tel Aviv.
This is TLV1.
This is
Tel Aviv is a beautiful city.
Great city, great radio.
TLV1.
This is TLV1.
From the TLV1 studios in Tel Aviv, Israel, it's Louis Live! Now your host, me, Ari Louis. Good evening, everyone. This is Louis Live on TLV1.fm. Thank you for joining us. Tuesday, 7 p.m. local time here in the Holy Land. We have a great show tonight. We're going to talk about David Blatt, coach of Maccabi Tel Aviv. Will he go to the New York Knicks or will he stay in Israel? Stair climbing in Haifa coming up in a couple of days. Yossi Benayoun's record-breaking performance, quote-unquote, in a couple of days, and also anti-Semitism after Maccabi Tel Aviv's big win last week of the EuroLeague Championship. But first, we're going to talk about a very interesting story. Yuri Foreman, Israel's first Jewish boxing champion, was set to fight in about a week and a half, and all of a sudden he retired. To explain more about this sudden surprise is the author of Modern Day Maccabees, Andrew Gershman. Andrew, welcome back to Louis Live on TLV1.
Hey, Ari, how you doing?
Doing great. Now, this is a very interesting story because Yuri Foreman was set to fight on the undercard of Sergio Martinez, Miguel Cotto. That's a pretty big card. He was going to get back to exposure after his 4-fight winning streak, and now he is off that card. Tell us why that is.
Well, you know, he according to Yuri, he has found himself in the middle of a contract that he does not want to be a part of. And I guess he felt his best option was to get out of the fight game right now. He made a posting on his Facebook page on his wall and thanked his fans and pretty much said, "You'll wait and see what my next move will be." And we know he's a guy that has a lot going on, studying to get his smicha. Right. And fighting, but, I think the shock was that it came here a week before this fight.
Yeah, there was quotes from different promoters, Lou DiBella, saying he was surprised because Yuri went through the whole training process, training for months for this fight. So to quit now is a little strange. And Yuri was not given a lot of comments outside of the Facebook group, but if it is a problem with his management, is it the manager is getting too much money, too much control? Do you have any information in that respect?
Nothing has been put out there public. I spoke to Yuri through emails just last week. He, of course, was not mentioning any details other than, he's got some plans to do things in the future. He doesn't really, he wasn't really... He was very vague, let's just say, about what was going on. But from all reports, you're right that he had completely gone through all the motions and getting ready for this fight. It's a fight card that was, the undercard was kind of weak to begin with. His fight was probably the best of the fights on the undercard. I know that it's kind of got the pay-per-view world scrambling a little bit.
Yeah, it was going to be on HBO pay-per-view, so he was going to have a lot of eyeballs watching him fight, and he may be past his prime. Of course, a few years ago, he won the championship in 2009 and had that fight in Yankee Stadium. He lost a couple of fights, but as I mentioned, won 4 fights in a row, is looking back on track, and it's just a very strange time to retire.
Right. I mean, and like, we've spoken off air, like you said, who knows if this is gamesmanship, but from all reports, this fight will not happen next week with him. And, I don't know what the legalities of sitting out and with his management team. Does he find a new management team and get back on track? Or, is he just past his prime and moves on to something else?
Yeah, right now he is the age... He's 35 and 36 in a couple of months, so he could be done in that respect. And we've also talked about Dmitry Salita, the other Shomer Shabbat Jewish boxer who's famous, and Dmitry's gone more into the promotion side. Do you think Yuri might do that?
Right. He certainly has. Dmitry has kind of segued his way into fighting some small fights, but more importantly, he's been promoting those fights with bigger names on the card. He just signed a guy who, I think a heavyweight who was on the undercard. I'm trying to think of which fight recently, but He's kind of gotten himself into that arena of promoting. And, I guess it's always an option when you know the inside. However, you have to wonder, a guy who walks away from his management team and, how easy it's going to be for him to sign other, fighters under him.
And I believe it was a few years ago that his manager died, I believe.
Correct. So he's So he's not in with his original group. Right. His manager died, I think it's been almost 3 years ago. So, right, he is under new management, but he has fought the last, I think, 3 or 4 fights with this new management team, as far as I know. Remember, this is a guy who was a world champion. We're not talking about somebody who just, is, fly by the night. He had his fight in Yankee Stadium. So, he's gotten, he received his payday, but who knows what kind of deal he got after that.
We're speaking with Andrew Gershman, the author of Modern Day Maccabees, and that book has a chapter on Yuri Foreman. And in those interviews, what was the perception that you got interviewing Yuri Foreman in such a close proximity?
Well, he was passionate about the fight game and passionate about his, Judaism and receiving a smita, and he thought it went hand in hand, kind of a mind and body type of thing. And he certainly, I interviewed him for the book probably 2 years ago. There was certainly no indication then. It was all about, coming back and coming back better than ever. So, he's a guy, he's a guy that, kind of wears it on his sleeve, and something obviously struck him wrong about this deal coming up. Who knows if there was any kind of back alley deals behind it, that he didn't know about from his management crew. But, it's certainly a kind of a shock. And, I've heard people, I've read some comments online that, who cares? It doesn't matter. His fighting was a boring style and this, that. But, again, he was a world champion and Israel's first Jewish world champion. So, for me, and I'm sure for you, it was a bigger shock than for many.
Yeah, and it should be known again, Israel's first Jewish champion, so that is certainly something very significant, and Israel should be concerned about this if this is the way his career will end. Also, when you notice the fact that boxing has very shady things going on all the time, so if the fighter says, you know what, this is even too shady for boxing standards, I'm going to leave, then must be something really, really bad.
Right, exactly, because like you said, there's always shady dealings in the world of boxing. You of all people know oh too well. You're a student of the fight game, and you've seen it all. But you just like you said, just to walk away is just such a huge move.
Now, last question or last point, I thought because Yuri's had such an impact on both of our lives, who knows where we would be if it wasn't for Yuri Foreman, because he came on our second show we did on another network. When you booked him, that really catapulted us. So I just thought it was important to have you on tonight after Yuri's quote-unquote retirement, and I just thought, any words on that response, just what Yuri's done for the two of us?
Look, Yuri, he's been a huge part of both of our broadcast journalism careers. He, like you said, he kind of legitimized our second show there, and gave us the platform and the springboard really to book other guests. He, it was great. And we've had personal conversations with him, and we've had, journalism conversations with him. And, for both of us, for me especially, I can't speak for you, but, I respect all that he's done in and out of the ring and what he's done for the Russian, Jewish community in New York. And I think it's a big loss for the Jewish sports world. When I go to speak to kids around and I talk about Yuri Foreman, they're just, they're mesmerized by his story, and it is a great story. And hopefully this will not be the end of the boxing story, but if it is, I'm sure he will go on to do other great things.
He's also a very funny man, and I want the audience to know that. We had some great jokes with him. We teased him. He was cool with it. I talked about how they should have a Yuri Foreman kosher grill instead of the George Foreman kosher grill. That would be the same thing except 3 times as expensive. I mean, he rolled with it. He made jokes about eating chult on Shabbat and fighting Motzi Shabbat. So he was always a pleasure to interview. And
Right.
I hope
Exactly.
I hope this is not it. I hope he gets back in. But for now, he is retired. And Andy, thanks for coming on. One more time, where can people get the book Modern Day Maccabees?
Modern Day Maccabees available on easiest way. We'll go with Amazon.com. Just put in Modern Day Maccabees or Andrew Gershman. You can find it there. And Ari, always great talking to you. And if you get a chance to tell the sports rabbi, unfortunately, there will not be a Canadian team, it looks like, in the Stanley Cup again.
I'll try to mention that. All right. Thank you, Andy. Be well.
All right, be well.
All right. Andy Gershman, everyone. A quick break. On the other side, as mentioned, the sports rabbi talk about Maccabi Tel Aviv. Will David Blatt go to the New York Knicks? Find out after this. All right, back here on Louis Live on TLV1.FM. As always, you can follow the station on Twitter at TLV1.FM. Great segment with Andy Gershman, and to follow up that great segment on the line right now from SportsRabbi.com, it's Sports Rabbi Josh Halleckman. Sports Rabbi, how you doing? How you doing out there?
What's going on there, Ari Louis?
Andy wanted me to pass to you that there likely will not be a Canadian team, I guess, in the Stanley Cup Finals. He just wanted me to say that. I didn't say that. He said that, though. So that's a little back and forth because your team beat the Boston Bruins, so I think he's a little upset about that. But that's okay. These things happen. Let's talk about Israeli sports with an American twist, because there's a lot of rumors that David Blatt will go to the New York Knicks. And before we talk about that particular possibility, who are some other people that might be coaching the New York Knicks? Who's some of the people on the short list?
You know, you got to look at Mark Jackson. Even though he's signing up with ESPN, he's still definitely in play. I definitely think that Mark Jackson has a shot of coaching the New York Knicks. I also think that Derek Fisher is on the short list to coach the New York Knicks. I'm not sure who else is really on that list. You're going to look at guys that either have some, good experience or people that are Phil Jackson type of guys. So Derek Fisher fits that, that slot, and the experience of looking at Mark Jackson. I look out there in the NBA coaching ranks right now. There are a bunch of job openings, be it Minnesota, Utah, the Knicks, the Lakers. I'm probably missing another team over there. But there's at least 5 or 6 teams that are looking for head coaches. Now, the one name that should be on everybody's radar list and radar screen is, of course, David Blatt, who coached Maccabi Tel Aviv to the European Championship this past week. David Blatt, of course, comes originally from Boston, moved to Israel in the early 80s, played basketball at Princeton under Pete Carril, was very close to Steve Mills, who used to be one of the head honchos at Madison Square Garden, of course, for the New York Knicks. He had a good relationship with David Blatt. Does Steve Mills still have any type of influence over Phil Jackson to try to maneuver or manipulate him into bringing in somebody like David Blatt, who was able to take a team that, let's face it, did not have any superstars, did not have any name talent, and was able to gel them as a team, and it took all year to do so, and walked away defeating the likes of Real Madrid, defeating the likes of CSKA Moscow, who have budgets that are almost triple the size of Maccabi Tel Aviv's budget. So that's something to look at. David Blatt is a top coach. If the NBA is going to be calling, it's got to be now. He's 55 years old, just celebrated his 55th birthday this past week. He is, in my opinion, should be looked at by every team that has a job opening in the NBA. And let's face it, he's the type of coach that wants to go to the NBA, and he knows that right now his stock is at the highest value. Will he go? That will be seen, and we'll have to see what's going to happen in the next few weeks.
And one of the things that was talked about, I believe Boomer Esiason made a pitch on his radio show to the Knicks that David Blatt has not just won with Maccabi, he's won everywhere he's ever been. He took the Russian team, obviously did very, very well, and as you've talked about, he does not always have star players but figures out a way to win. How about what would hold back an NBA team from picking up David Blatt?
I think that he does not have any NBA experience, and that is a fear of many of the general managers and presidents across the league, that he has not coached an NBA team. He has not gone through the rigors of an NBA season. Let's face it, the European League is a little different than the NBA. Between the Euro League and the domestic league, you're playing somewhere around 60 to 70 games, so that's already less. The travel is nothing like the NBA, where teams are shuttling in and shuttling out of cities, day in and day out, and that's definitely not an easy feat. That's something that has to be, he'll have to acclimate to. There's no question. That's not easy. The amount of practice time that is given in Europe and Israel is just so much more than in the NBA. You have training camp, and then right after training camp, you're already playing, and you're going to gel as a team as the games go by. The practice time is at a premium, especially in the NBA. And then again, he hasn't had the egos to deal with, the high contracts and the egos that will take place. That may be a problem for David Blatt. He does not have that experience. Yes, he's won in Turkey. Yes, he's won with the Russian team the European championships, country-wise. He's finished third in the Olympics with the Russian team, which is a massive accomplishment, considering first place is going to go to the U.S. on any given year. So you're looking at a true winner. You're looking at a guy that's basketball nuts and bolts, knows how to coach. Can he keep up with the NBA rigors? I would think that's the real big question that probably the general managers and presidents of NBA teams have.
We're speaking with the sports rabbi Josh Halleckman here on Louis Live on TLV1. Now, you were speaking about the NBA general managers might be scared of taking a guy who has no NBA experience. What about the option of bringing him on as an assistant coach? Would that be something you think David Blatt would accept? Some people said no, he has to have a head coaching job. What about as an assistant role?
I don't think David Blatt will take an assistant role. At this age of 55, how many years does he really have left as a head coach? Not more than 10, if that, and that's even stretching it right now. He's not going to go to the NBA as an assistant. Would he go as an associate head coach? Perhaps, maybe, if the money's right. But I think he wants to have full control on the team. And if he doesn't get it in the NBA, he's certainly going to get it in Maccabi Tel Aviv, who have already, apparently, through the reports, have offered him a very big long-term contract with basically the right to do what he wants to do with the club. And that could be from player selection to, up and down total basketball operations. And he's going to get those offers from any of the teams, CSKA Moscow, and the list can go on in Europe. So he is not going to give up the power. I think that will be very tough for him to do, considering he hasn't been an assistant for a long time. And he's going to want to have full control.
All right, and last question on this issue. What would be the money difference? What's the money he's looking at now, potentially at Maccabi Tel Aviv versus an NBA coaching job? Because that would obviously have a factor in his decision if he is given that opportunity.
Yeah, right now with Maccabi Tel Aviv, you're looking at $1 million a year.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, $850,000 to $1 million, maybe with the bonuses. An NBA team will pay him the same money. I think the money is basically going to be identical what he's going to earn in the NBA and what he's going to earn in Europe. And I think he's not going to take a job. He won't go to a job interview in the NBA where they're going to try to, give him a smaller contract because he has no NBA experience. He will just say, guys, if I'm getting this money from Maccabi Tel Aviv or Moscow or Turkey or wherever else, I'm coming in. You got to give me a long-term contract. He's going to want a 3-year contract, 4-year contract, and go for it. I can't see how he won't at this situation. Otherwise, he's going to just stay in Israel if he has that opportunity. His family's here, and that's it. Would he want the NBA experience? Yes, 100%. Will that bother him when he goes to his grave? Probably yes. He's going to want to play. He's going to want to, coach NBA players and see if he's able to do that. And I believe he's going to be in the NBA this year. And I think that you haven't seen other teams name their coaches yet because I think he is definitely in the rumor mill and definitely on the radar screen of all these clubs.
Well, you were right with your prediction about Maccabi's blowout in Game 4 of the playoffs. And your prediction is he will be in the NBA this year?
Yes.
All right. Sports Rabbi telling it like it is. And before we let you go, give some plugs where people can hear your show and other shows you do.
Of course, there's sportsrabbi.com. We're just in the middle of taping a great Sports Rabbi show right now with Doc Ike talking about why the Montreal Canadiens will not go down to defeat we hope tonight. So we can send that off to Andy.
All right.
We also talk HolyLandHoops.com. We talk about Israeli basketball. And, of course, FootballIsrael.com covers the Israeli Soccer League. And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. And, of course, everybody listen to Ari Louis' show on TLV1. It's great stuff, and he brings you the great stuff in Israeli sports.
All right. Sports Rabbi, thank you so much for the kind words and the segment, and we'll keep an eye on the David Blatt situation. It should be very, very interesting. Thank you so much.
Honor and a pleasure. Take care, Ari.
All right, be well. Sports Rabbi, everybody. Quick break. On the other line, coming up next, Adam Davis talking about some Israeli tennis. Very interesting story. Stay tuned. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Great segment there with the Sports Rabbi Josh Halleckman. And, of course, great music as well. All my music courtesy of Tomer Gershman. So shout out to Tomer. And, of course, shout out to Udi, who is to my right producing tonight's episode. We're going to switch gears and talk tennis right now. The Roland Garros is coming up, and our Israeli tennis players that you've come to love and know will be participating. And on the line, has been on the show for a while. Good to have him back from Medabri Communications, Mr. Adam Davis. Adam, welcome back to the program.
Thanks, Ari. How's it going?
It's going great, and Lone C and I wrote a great story in the Jerusalem Post regarding the Roland Garros event that's coming up this week, and the three tennis players we're used to seeing, Yulia Glushko, Shachar Per, Dudi Sela, the top three Israeli players. They're going to have a bit of a tough battle coming up this week. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, actually, all three of those players have already played their matches in round one of the French Open, with only one of the three moving on. So, like Alon said in his article, it was definitely going to be tough for the Israeli tennis players. But Julia Grishko managed to move on to the second round, winning today. So, maybe there's still some hope for Israel.
All right, let's talk about the two that lost. Of course, Shachar Per, Dudi Sela, they were both matched up with players that were ranked much higher than them. Dudi Sela right now is number 110th in the world, so he had to play someone that was a lot better. Tell us about those matches.
Well, I mean, looking at the past of Israeli tennis players, and like was mentioned in the article as well, they don't really have such success on the clay courts of the French Open, and that really showed. Both Shachar Per and Dudi Sela struggled today on the courts. They had a combined 8-game victories among them. So they really, over the course of 6 sets between those two matches, not very impressive showing from them, and another just disappointment on the clay for Israel, which has really been the case for them in past events.
You have a theory? Because we always talk about this with you, about different theories. Why in particular would Israeli players suffer and struggle on the clay court? Are they just not used to it? It's not how they played in Israel. What's your theory on that?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because, even Roger Federer has a lot of trouble on clay. He loses to Nadal almost every single year. It really just depends on the strengths and weaknesses of a given player, and it really just depends who they got matched up with as well. Like we said before, Shachar Per was matched up against the Canadian Eugenie Bouchard, who's actually one of the rising stars in women's tennis right now. That's just the luck of the draw. There's nothing you can do about that. And the clay doesn't seem to help considering that they haven't really had success on it. So it's kind of just like a mixture, a perfect storm, if you will, of those kind of things, and they just didn't manage to get much done out in the court today.
It's interesting, this quote-unquote rivalry between Julia Glushko and Shachar Per, because for a long time it was considered Shachar Per was by far the best female Israeli tennis player. Now it looks like Glushko is starting to get that mantle. What are your thoughts on that particular aspect?
Well, it could be a little bit that we're seeing a bit of passing the torch. Shachar Per lost 6-love, 6-2 today. And Julia Grishko really grounded out over 3 sets, winning 7-5 in the first one. It seems like she's got a lot more fight in her than Per has right now. Also, she was up against a pretty tough opponent in Donna Vekic, I believe her name is pronounced, from Croatia. So, it could just be that we're seeing that she's passing the torch over to her for the future. But, this is Glushko looking to, if she wins in her next match, then it could be her best finish ever at the French Open. I think she's kind of just determined right now, having seen what happened to the other two Israelis, trying to still save face for her home country, I think. Right,
the one Israeli left in the tournament, and we'll see what she could do. And also, in Shachar Per's defense, she did have an injury somewhat recently, about 6 to 8 months ago. It could be affecting her, could not. Time will tell on that. Now, speaking of Julia, has it been announced yet her opponent that she'll be playing against?
Yeah, she'll be up against Kirsten Flipkens, who is from Belgium. Also won a tough match in her first-round matchup. She's got a pretty decent ranking, but like I said, Glushko's going to have to battle. At this point, she's looking to to set the best finish she's ever had at the French Open. Flipkens, her opponent, is ranked 22nd in the world. Not exactly what you'd be hoping for, but if you want to win, you got to beat the other good players. So she could be motivated, like I said, knowing that she's the last Israeli in a singles match in this tournament.
All right, so she'll be taking out the 22nd player ranked in the world, 22nd ranking. If she gets that victory, it'd be a big upset. But if she does, who's she looking to face potentially in the next couple of rounds after that?
Well, I mean, it's really not going to be easy. It's just going to keep getting harder. You know, she's looking at possibly facing someone who's ranked 26th overall. Could be someone that's ranked 94th overall. You know, it really just depends on what's going to happen. But I think if she can manage to pull out a win against Flipkins, and you know, just the motivation, the momentum off of that, and knowing that she's gone farther on the clay than she has before, that could really, you know, help steer her towards another victory. But she's got to get through the Belgian first, so we'll see about that one. All
right. And last question, when's that match take place so all of Israel can root Julia on?
I believe it's taking place in the coming days. I'm just checking right now because the first round matches are still getting finished up. So once I think they get all those through, they're going to start going towards the second round of matches. Should be either tomorrow or the following day to see Glishko take on the Belgian Flipkins.
All right. That'll be great stuff. Very exciting stuff. So we'll see what she could do, and it's great she's representing Israel in this tournament. Adam, thank you so much. Great job as always. Adam Davis from Dobrin Communications here on Louis Live on TLV1. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Ari. Take care.
All right. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side, there is a stair climbing event coming up in Haifa in a couple of days. To talk about that is radio personality and stair climber Radio Mike. This is Louis Live on TLV1. Back here on Louis Live on TLV1. Thanks for joining us. We have a great show the rest of the way. We're going to have on Ben Myers in about 10 minutes to talk about Yossi Benayoun breaking a record for the Israel national soccer team. And, of course, Yossi G in about 20 minutes from ESPN talking about the anti-Semitic messages left by fans after Maccabi Tel Aviv's European victory. But on the line right now to talk about the stair race going on in Haifa, our good friend and stair climber himself, Radio Mike. Radio Mike, welcome back to Louis Live.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Now, you were in studio a couple months ago because you did the stair race climbing in the Israeli Towers. There's one in Haifa in a couple of days. Tell us, is the Haifa one known more as a rigorous climbing as opposed to the Israeli Towers? Compare the two if you can for us.
Well, they're really completely different. The Israeli Towers, they were all indoors. There were two divisions, really. I did all three buildings, which was 140 floors. Most people only did one building, which was just 52 floors. The one in Haifa is really completely different. It's outdoor steps. Almost the whole race is done outdoors. You don't have the benefit of railings. The steps aren't all symmetrical. They're not all the same height and depth. You finish in the Don Hotel in Carmel, which is really a beautiful view there. So you finish doing 20 floors inside the hotel, but for the most part, it's outdoors. Some of it is downhill, some of it's uphill. There's running, or walking, whatever the case may be. So it's really completely different challenge.
Okay, so it's definitely a different race. And my understanding that there's a pro and an amateur track. The pro has a harder race.
Well, yeah, I mean, so they have different levels here also. I mean, you could do one level, you can be like, I believe, 1,075 steps, which is a nice workout. Most people do 1,500 steps plus all the walking or running and stuff like that. And then you have Ultra Everest, which is 32,250 steps, which is really, you have to be really top-notch. And, you have some people from Israel that are world leaders in fitness. And I wouldn't recommend doing 32,000 steps if you weren't really in top shape.
Wow, okay, so that's certainly a huge amount. And just like you came from the United States for the Israeli Towers to do that race, is it a similar situation where people are coming from different countries, obviously outside of Israel, to participate in the Haifa race?
Yeah, there are a bunch of people I did see in the registration that are coming from different parts of the world for this. Well, a bunch I know are coming from the United States. The one I did in the Israel Towers, as far as I know, I was the only crazy American that did come from America to do that race in Tel Aviv. But, it should be a fun event on Friday.
Yeah, it'll be coming up on Friday. Now, I'm very curious about the training because it's great to have you on since you did it. You had to go through very extensive training to get that accomplished. Tell us what were some of the things you did training-wise and how long that you did them for.
Well, one of the things that you really have to try to do, it's called CrossFit, and it's mentioned in the website, which I think everyone should really, if they're thinking about joining and registering, it's haifastairs.co.il / and they mentioned over there that you need to do CrossFit training. Biking is very good. Squats, running, lunges. You need upper body strength. You need to really be in shape. If you just do your legs, and you don't have the cardio enough, that could be a problem. So the better shape. I mean, right now, if a person wants to start training for Friday, he can't do it. You have to be in decent shape to be able to do it by Friday. And right now, being that it's already Tuesday,
right?
Today would be like a light workout, and I probably wouldn't even work out on Wednesday or Thursday if I were doing this event on Friday.
But when you trained for the Israeli race, I mean, you trained for months, right?
Well, it's a nonstop event. It's really year-round.
Okay.
I try to go to the gym between 3 to 4 times a week. Right now in New York, finally, it's half-decent weather, so I can do some bicycle riding outside. So I might do, 15, 20 miles on the bike outdoors, so I wouldn't go to the gym that day. You do. The more training you do and the better shape you're in, the easier the events will be when you do stair climbing. Sure.
So when you're working out, even now, and it's almost June, I mean, you're thinking about the stair race that could be a long time from now. It's all related.
Yes, right now, yeah. So in New York, and in basically in the United States, there aren't too many events that happen in the spring and summer. It's really a fall and winter sport. Right now, it's mainly running outdoors, bicycling outdoors, but stair climbing events usually are in the middle of the winter, like in January and February. Of course, Israel, they would do it, they're going to do the marathon, they do it when it's like 95 degrees outside in Tel Aviv. But most places, it's really, stair climbing is really a fall and winter sport in the States.
And in America, you've also done the ones in Boston, you did one in Chicago. Compare those as well to the ones you did in Israel with the Israeli towers.
I tell you, it's the one in Chicago I really love. It was 180 flights with 4 different buildings. Basically, I like every building. The one in, unfortunately, Israeli, because only 28 people did all 3 buildings. So the first 2 buildings were a little bit, how do you say, politically correct, not too clean. Like people, it says Asur La'ashen, which means not to smoke. But I think people don't really understand when it says Asur La'ashen. That means that you smoke in the stairwell. So a lot of the stairwells are full of cigarette butts. Obviously, they're drinking their coffee too, and no one even cleans those stairwells. So they're smoke-filled. I mean, I do wear gloves. Afterwards, I have to wash my gloves because they smell of smoke and everything like that. And even my clothing stinks after that. And it's not just from perspiration, it's from the smoky stairwells. But, and you're gasping for air, you do get out of breath. And it would be a little bit nicer if the stairwells were a little bit cleaner in Israel, but that would not deter me. I'm looking forward, the best of Hashem, with the help of God, doing the event next year as well in, I believe, November.
All right. So it'll be great to have you doing that event. And Haifa, again, the race, if you guys are interested, it's this Friday, and you can look it up on their website. Can you give that website one more time, Radio Mike?
Yeah, sure. haifastairs.co.il /.
All right. They should be paying both of us. We're advertising that on the show. But nevertheless, if they don't pay us, that's fine. But they're doing a nice thing there with that race. So if people want to get involved, you do have to be in somewhat good shape by now because it's Tuesday before the Friday race. But if you are in that situation, you can check them out. Radio Mike, we're out of time for this segment. But thank you so much for being on Louis Live on TLV1.
My pleasure. Thank you, Ari.
All right. Be well.